Tonight we're welcoming Tammy Drawborough from the Iowa School Board Association to help us with some board self-assessment and development training.
Well, thanks, friends. You're embarking on a big project tonight, and right before you were getting started, I said you all really are going to do the heavy lifting tonight. I am just going to be here to kind of guide some of the work. I'm going to have you dig into the pieces that we're going to use for the self-assessment. You will take the self-assessment later. I'll give you the details about that. And in another month, I'm coming back. And then you all are going to get to dig in and talk a little bit about your data that you see. But before we do that, you have a packet of information. You have a couple packets of information in front of you. Hang on to that thick packet, but the one that has my name on the front, remember my standard verbiage, you have my super secret cell phone number. Mm-hmm. So you have your, there's a contact to IASB, but please use that as you need it, okay? Take a look at page 1. Here's what I'm gonna ask you to do before we get started. 2 questions that I want you to think about, and I'm gonna have you be ready to share these out. One is, if I run into you at the local Casey's tomorrow, and I say, Chris, I saw a whole bunch of cars at the school last night. Y'all must have been having a party, and I saw you ate while you worked. What in the world were you doing? Because I heard you were doing something about, I don't know, assessing yourselves or something. That's probably how I would sound if I was crabby. I don't know. What would you tell me? What would you say to a community member or a staff member who says, why is the board doing a self-assessment? What's your answer to that? And then the second question that's on page 1 that I want you to give some thought to is, what do you want to get out of the result of tonight's work session? What are your best hopes for the work you're going to do tonight? And I'll stop talking so you can write. Everybody get a chance to jot some notes down? what would you say? What would you tell a community member? Why in the world? Why are you doing a board self-assessment? I'll stand here and write, by the way, while you all share out.
I just put down trying to become a more effective and connected board.
I love
That
that.
was way more concise. Mine was to provide education and cohesion as a board to be an effective board. It takes, I said, when we take many people from diverse backgrounds, we want to ensure we function well as a team.
Hold on. I can't lose that thought. That was so good. Many people from a diverse background. What was the rest of that?
We want to ensure we function well as a team.
Beautiful.
I feel like Chris said it way concisier than I love it. That's what I meant.
Man, a few
Yeah.
words.
I like it.
Hence the diverse background of how we all do things a little bit differently, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, who's next? Who wants to share next? Somebody started to say something and I rudely cut them off.
Okay, well,
Sorry,
I
Jeff.
said, to learn to work together, this is a board that must work as a team for the betterment of our students.
Love it. Anybody else want to share?
Just want to make sure we're doing what's right by our students, staff, and communities.
Okay.
And unlike Chris, I tend to be longer-winded, so we're building common vision and common understanding to put our beliefs in action. Okay? This session is for a board to learn how the board can impact the school district's performance. And I tell them that we were going to get into the Iowa Lighthouse study and understanding the two main differences between high-performing districts and low-performing districts.
Extra gold stars for using the Lighthouse.
Okay, take them.
Awesome. What are your best hopes for tonight besides free pizza? It's technically not free because you had to work for it.
I'm hoping for some I guess I wrote this down. To better understand the research and knowledge that makes an effective and efficient board that's able to manage a variety of experiences in a changing world with the most efficiency and effectiveness possible. It's a big task. We want to do it well, but we don't want to waste anyone's time either. So I feel like there's research that, there's
Yeah.
research out there.
Who else?
I'll be short this time. Further develop the board's understanding of our roles and impact.
Anybody else want to share?
I said, how to learn to communicate openly. Don't be afraid of one another.
Beautiful. Anybody else?
Mine's basically the same as what these guys said.
Well, here are a couple of things I want you to think about. And I love what you said about here's what I would tell a community member. Here's what you would tell Krabby Tammy if you ran into her at the Casey's or wherever. And what I hear in several of your comments is, are we doing it right? That's not what you said. You said that we are doing it right, but I hear you saying, are we questioning, right? Are we doing it right? And could we do it better? When we have a conversation tonight, and when I task you with what tonight will not be easy. I've probably said that too before. Tonight will not be easy. Because you really are, you are gonna dig in and you are going to help teach each other what you need to know to be ready to take the assessment. What I want you to think about is not, are we doing it right? I want you to think about, is there a better way that we could do it? I want you to think about when one of you says, hey, we do this really well, and this is how we know we're doing it. I want you to say to each other, are we sure? I want you to really push each other to say, is there more? And you don't have to have the answer to, is there more, or is there something different? Because you may say, I don't know. that will also be part of what you will do tonight, and it's part of what you'll do through the assessment. But I'm going to ask you to, all of you, challenge each other tonight when we say, hey, yeah, no, we do it. Because I'm going to ask you, come up with some examples. What are some things you do? And so if I say to Sarah, well, we do blah, 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 blah. So yeah, we're doing this. I want Sarah to look at me and go, are we? And then talk about that. Because it doesn't mean that what I said was wrong. It just means let's really talk about what that could look like. Okay? So I want you to think about that, because the things you're doing great things. But I am gonna ask you tonight, I want you to push yourselves just a little bit in that piece. I should have kicked off with this, because I'm gonna change gears for just a minute. I know you all have been talking about earning your team award for the hours that you spend learning. So tonight, you earn 2 hours. When I come back in, was it September 12th, September 11th, you will have another 2 hours for that workshop, plus you have to show up. Plus you'll get we award you an hour for doing the self-assessment. So between now and September 11th, as long as,
I have the 12th on my schedule.
well, this is why I should not trust my memory. Oh, so September 12th,
That's
sorry.
okay.
Which means I have to be somewhere else September 11th. I'm so sorry, I'm glad you said that. See, this is why we say to each other, are you sure that's right? So when I'm back on September 12th, sorry friends, so between now and then, that's 2, 4, 1, math was never my thing, but I'm pretty sure it's 5. Yes? Y'all should be laughing a little. All right, so 5 more hours, which is fabulous. So Tony, you already have your individual award earned, which is fabulous. Sarah, you are so close, so you're at 11. If we add 5 to that between now and, you'll be good. Jeff, you're at 13. If we add 5 to that, you also are good. Dustin, you are so close. Somebody has to help me on this math. You are at 7. If we add 5 more to that, you just need 3 more hours, right? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 to get to 15.
And when do we have to have it by?
You have until the end of October. I tell you October 30. I know there's 31 days in October, but that's like the planning mom
We've
in
been doing
me.
that meet the board table training too before, so that's August, September, October, that's 3.
Perfect. So you are, and Chris, you've got a couple hours. You're gonna add 5 more to that, but here's the gig. You need a majority of your board to earn to get that team award. Feels like you have that, will be nailed away nicely. That's a big deal. So I'm gonna hold off on saying congratulations just yet, but you are so close to the finish line. But I wanted to share that with you, because I know you've been working hard, and I know you talked about that, and I know you talked about a plan and how we were gonna do it. That's beautiful.
Quick question. The 2 members who couldn't be here tonight, if they watch tonight's session and do the survey and participate in the next one, can they, like other things, watch the session tonight and email you after they've completed that?
They can, except here's what I will say. Well, yes, we can do that.
Okay.
It might, here's my only hesitation. You're gonna divide into 2 teams. You really are gonna work hard tonight, because I was originally gonna divide you into 3 teams, but now I'm gonna divide you into 2 teams. They're gonna have a heavier lift. They're gonna miss out on, and which by the way, on your live stream, it'll be important. We probably should say this multiple times. The board's gonna move around. You may leave this room so that you can work. So you may have some real quiet time, and there may be times that your public or whoever watches that video can see the board, but they cannot hear you, and it does not mean you don't have a fabulous system. It doesn't mean it's not all working. It just means the owl can't grab everything, right? So Tony, help me. Let's just make sure we say that a couple times so that
Before
there's
we
somebody
break out.
watching.
Yes.
Yeah,
thank
because
you.
that'll be important. So thinking about when you split up into 2 groups, you may need to think about somebody even having a conversation with your 2 individuals to say, hey, let us help you understand some of these pieces. It'll make more sense when they do the evaluation.
Perfect.
Okay,
Thank
but we'll figure out how to make that work for them.
Okay, appreciate
I'm glad you asked about that. All right. I think I've said this to you all before, but you set the tone for your district. What happens around this table, it sets the tone for the district, even if you didn't have any audience or if you have a little audience. And I tell every board that, but what you do and how you do it when you are together absolutely matters in the work that you do. Tony mentioned the Lighthouse Study. I am going to share with you my small library that I brought. I think I may have shared this book before, and you've heard me say it's so old, it has a very old IASB logo on it. This is one, you can buy it from our website. Spoiler alert, you can also download it for free as a PDF. You print it yourself. It's the exact same thing, just not bound. This is all about the Lighthouse research. The Lighthouse research started in 2000. There was federal dollars that were put towards this. IASB led the charge, but there were many, many states that were involved. So it was much bigger than just Iowa. And what Tony so beautifully said is, the research really came to say, let's look at districts where we see high achieving students, and let's look at districts where we don't see as high of achieving students. And can we look at those boards and through research study to see what are the boards doing and how is that impacting achievement? Because I'm going to guess that there are times that you all felt like I felt sometimes when I sat in your seat, and that is the killer bees sucked all the time out of the board table. Decisions on buses, budgets, stuff that's really important, books, but not necessarily really getting to talk about student data, what the data means, how do I digest the data, which is when I look to this corner of the room and go, I don't know what this means. What does that mean? Tell me about, why aren't we testing more often? How come we don't test every day? And then that's when I remember an administrator looking at me going, no, Tammy, that's not what we're gonna do, is test every day. I didn't know, but to really get to dig into that, again, budgets, buses, books, it's all important, but those are the things that kind of tend to pull us away. The Lighthouse research talks about the things that you do and how you spend your time at the table absolutely impacts the achievement of your students. So if you ever question that, the research talks about that. There were a handful of districts through the state of Iowa that we had at one point in time a session that it would take you all year to go through the session. ISB was in your district many, many times talking about how do you become a Lighthouse district? Because friends, it's not easy. In theory, it feels really easy, but it's like anything. I, for some reason, cannot eat a salad today and lose 10 pounds tomorrow and then eat an entire bag of Oreos while binging Netflix and lose weight. I do not understand why that does not work. But it is this constant exercising of that muscle of talking about all the things that you do and how do we get there. Through time, board said we can't dedicate that much time. That's crazy, can't spend that much time. Okay, so then we took it into smaller chunks. Your neighboring district or neighboring-ish district, Spencer, is a Lighthouse district and has carried that through the years in a way that still blows me away, because it's also hard to maintain when staff leaves, when a superintendent moves on, when board changes over. They do things such as they do quarterly sessions. And by the way, I'm not suggesting that you have to do this. I'm using this as an example to kind of frame up this work. They will do quarterly sessions where they will have, they've done a variety of different ways, but they invite their SIAC committee, they invite their community, anybody that wants to come tonight, and maybe it's the grade schools that are going to share their data. And the board sits with community members and you learn and you listen to whatever that is that they're sharing in the data. And then, this is the magical part, you talk about it. You look to the person next to you and say, what do you see in the data? What surprises you? And you actually have this time where you get to talk about that data together with your community. They don't have thousands of people that show up, but they do have community that comes in and they have this conversation. The next quarter, maybe it's the middle school. The next quarter, maybe it's the high school. Some districts will we're gonna do reading one quarter and we're gonna span all the grades. We're gonna do math one quarter, we're gonna span all the grades. So there's not a right or wrong, but it's carving out time to learn about that data more than just buses, books, budgets. Like, wait, what's the third thing? So, and we have an example from Spencer that we will use as well. So this book is really helpful when you are on that journey. This is one of the things I keep close at hand at my own desk when I want to think, oh yeah, I need the refresher on. I want to go read about what does this tell me. Okay, so this is available to you as a tool, and it is the piece that we pick to use is the 8 traits. So you look at page 3. This is your cheat sheet. This is my ADD brain. Give this to me short and sweet where I can read it. The separate packet that Joe gave you is what you're going to use later tonight because you're going to need to dig into these pieces. The research said when we see that boards are really focusing on these 8 traits, this is where we really see them making a difference in what they're doing for achievement. By the way, this particular document, and you can see the credits along the bottom, it was in the American School Board Journal. It also came from some of the work that the National School Board Association did. They had a separate arm for research. For many years, IASB also had a separate arm for research, which is where the Lighthouse study came out of. If you're interested state-wise, Florida, Georgia, Illinois had a little bit in there. Idaho did a little bit. But there were several states across the U.S. that were involved. So here's what they found. Here's what the research said. High expectations and clear goals. So a board that comes together and says, what's really, really important to us to get done? And friends, it's not the thing, but it's the what are we shooting for? What is the thing that we want? And are we crystal clear that the thing we want, and I'm going to make this up, graduation rate. We want to see the graduation rate to be at X. That's about as clear as you can get. Then you look to Joe and say, okay, tell us what that's going to look like, right? I'm going to guess that there's probably a component of reading in there somewhere at the grade school level, right? There's probably a component of ISAP data that's going to come into that. There are going to be pieces that you're going to see, but what is it that's happening? There's also probably a piece of professional development in there that says, what does our staff need to be incredible? How do we support them? But Joe guides that when you say this is the thing that's really, or things that are really, really important to us. Number 2, that moral imperative that you believe every single one of your children, of your students can succeed. Every single one, all the time. Not just the ones we like, not the ones that are not naughty, all of them. That we don't ever find ourselves accidentally saying, well, you know, there are students who we just know will never, or every once in a while I hear a board member say, I hear the words eke out about those students. Every single student can learn. They will succeed. They'll all do it at a different pace. Beautiful. We all learn at a different pace, right? But we believe every single one. And what are the things that we do that say, yes, every single student? So, third one is we're focused on student achievement. We want to know what are the things that are driving, what are the things that are going to drive, again, I'm going to say graduation rate, what are the things that are driving that? And what do we need to know about whether it's the data, whether it's, do we need to put a new policy in place? I'm watching lots of districts across the state talk about cell phones. I'm watching lots of boards talk about the book, The Anxious Generation. It's on my list to read. Is there something that a policy needs to be added to your policies to support X. There doesn't have to be, I don't know what that is, but thinking about how do our policies impact the things that we do. The fourth one, I heard y'all talk about this, collaboration and communication. And that means, what does your relationship look like with each other? What does it look like with your superintendent? What does it look like with your staff? And when I say relationship, I don't mean, hey, every time I see the Casey's that I make it a point to necessarily say hi. I mean things like, there will be times that your staff will bring you data you don't like, or you wish it looked different. Okay, help your staff with that. Because I'm gonna guess, is staff ever a little nervous if they have to bring data to the board that's not exactly where you wanted it to be? I'd be nervous. So how do you help alleviate that with your staff so your staff knows, okay, the board's not gonna like the data, they'll acknowledge that, but we also know they're gonna support what we think we need. But that comes from the conversation that you have at the table as well. Number 5, data savvy. Are you always looking at what does the data tell us? Not what did Susie say when I saw her at the Hy-Vee and blah, 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 or not what did somebody tell me at the football game, but what does our data tell us? Are we moving in the right direction? And do I understand all of our data? Friends, you probably get a lot of data and it is okay to go, this makes no, I don't, can you tell me this a different way? I don't understand this. Or why do we look at it? Why are we looking at growth by student year over year versus 3rd grade this year to 3rd grade last year? Because that's a big difference. 3rd grade this year to 3rd grade last year versus 3rd grade last year to 4th grade this year, right? Are we looking for growth? Are we looking for year over year? What does that look like? Aligning your goals and your resources across the board. So if you're going to say, this is important, this is what this is the thing that we want to achieve, that we are really, really clear in everything we do, from professional development to when staff presents to us to what's the goal? What goal does this thing, what does that impact? And is our staff really, really clear on that? Team leadership. This one really talks about that relationship that you all have together. When I say team, I include the board and the superintendent. I don't think of you as separate. That together, what does that look like? And even in the times when I didn't like the decision, the vote didn't go my way, because it's happened, and it is not, I'm speaking from experience, it's not always easy, but I'm going to support my forward face is yes. We made that decision, Chris. I didn't like it, but I'm behind you, buddy. What do we need to do next, right? What does that look like? And then training, learning together exactly what you're doing tonight, or asking your staff, let us be your students. Teach us what we need to know about, why do we even have ISAT? I don't know. You all know I still call it ITDS because I'm that old. But what are the things, what do you want to learn about? You all did, I don't know, a year ago when I was here, y'all had a great financial session. You had Larry Spiegel on the big screen, right? So you took time to say, okay, we need to learn about this. Beautiful. Identifying those things becomes really important. Those 8 things, what you're going to do in a few minutes, I'm going to break you into 2 teams. You're each taking 4 traits. This is where the heavy lifting comes in. You're really going to dig into the traits that I assigned to your team. You're probably going to want to reference that 17-ish page document where it really gets deep about what's happening inside each one of those standards or traits. And you're going to come back and you're going to teach your peers about that. I believe in the education world, they call this jigsaw. I am so proud of myself because I learned that a while. I learned that term, I don't know, a year ago. I'm like, oh, I'm using it every time I get a chance. But you're going to teach each other. And I'm going to ask you to come up with examples of when do we do this? And that's where I'm saying to you, challenge each other. Do we really push each other on every idea and then say, what are we forgetting? Because that part will be really, really important when you do your self-assessment. On page 3, still, what I don't want to leave off is there's danger signs. The research also said, here are things that are really concerning. When we see lower achievement districts, here's some danger signs of things that we see. A through L. I'm only sort of kind of aware of what's going on. I don't really know what our initiatives are. I think you all are pretty solid on goals that I can at least say, here are the 3 key things that we're focusing on. I don't need to know every piece. I don't need to be able to regurgitate every piece of what Joe's doing and by when, but I at least need to know high level. What are those things? What's really, really important to us? We are not allowing external pressures to take our eye off the ball. Friends, I think that's the hardest one. Because when you live in a small community or a community where the whole world knows you and you can't go anywhere without being stopped, oh, sir, I'm so glad I ran into you because I've been meaning to call you for 6 weeks, but now that I saw you, this makes it super easy. Let me just blah, right? And all these things. And not that you don't want to listen to your community, but what's really important? What are the things that really require your attention? The micromanaging, plain and simple, right? The, hey, I'm going to go fix this. No, we want to talk about what are those big key initiatives? What are the things that we're looking at? Data is mentioned in here. We're not blaming on data. When the data comes back and we don't like it, yep. So something didn't work the way we thought it would. How can we help? What do you need from the board? What does that look like? The very last one on the danger signs is if you're not doing any professional development together, if you're not taking any time to learn. I love the fact that y'all are doing board tables, right? You don't always have to have me here. I'll come as often as you want, but there are lots of things that you can still do together in your learning as well. So I don't want you to lose sight of those danger signs because that's going to be an important piece of what you're going to do as well. All right, that is my really high-level overview of those 8 standards, which does not do them justice, but you all are going to do them justice, okay? So here's what you're going to do. Let's see, I did some creative work on that. So group number 1, Sarah, Jeff, and Dustin.
Nice.
You are going to do traits. I could have made this easy, but that would be way too fun. So you might want to write this down. 1, because they're not sequential. 3, 4, and 8. 1, 3, 4, and 8. Group 2, you might guess, Tony and Chris, you're going to do 2, 5, 6, and 7. Here's my recommendation. You have lots of flip chart paper. I recommend that you take, you probably want a sheet for each trait is my guess. You're gonna go with your team, and I'm okay if you wanna move around in here, if there's another classroom you wanna go into, just so you have some room to move around and write. I don't care about your
traits in this packet or this packet?
This big one is what you're gonna want for this
There's
work.
8 in here too.
Yes, and they're the same, but this is the, I call this the full-fledged report that was done on the 8 traits.
I have a quick question on that because it is the same 8 in the other 2, but there was an update that came out from Luann on June 28th from ISB's packet. And there's 5 there instead of 8, 5 key functions, a little more simplified. There's also a very simple breakdown that the key difference between highly effective districts and less effective ones is the board is different in its actions and beliefs. Clear statement about actions and beliefs, and that's the key driver for the board. And then it went 2 steps further that those main differences are, number 1, district working culture and the 7 conditions of productive change, and number 2, what adults believe about learning and student achievement. So I'm just trying to correlate and understand how all the different pieces
So
fit.
those 5, this is the exact question that I have asked because I'm like, it's a lot to remember. Those 5 come out of the 8 traits. So I think those are the 5 standards: visionary team.
Set high expectations, hold system accountable. create
Yes.
8 conditions for success, build collective will, learn together as a board.
So so those fit into your 8 standards, but your 8 standards break them out a little bit more. So data savvy is not called out individually in those 5 standards, but it is one of the 8 traits that what you're going to dig into is, are we doing that? And if we are, how are we doing that? So the 5 standards are what IASB took from that Lighthouse research. The 8 standards that you're going to use to do your work on and your self-evaluation probably just breaks them out a little bit deeper. Neither one is wrong. They're both great, but 5 is shorter than 8. Helpful?
Yep.
So this is a document you're going to want to use for your traits. So, Sarah, you have trait number 1, right?
Yes.
When you look at this, you get a lot more detail about what does this tell me about trait number 1 and what does it look like. As a team, you're going to want to take some time and probably just read through your traits. So I would tell you, give yourselves a good 10 or 15 minutes just to divvy up and go read about your traits. I would not encourage you to say, we have 4 traits, let's each be responsible for 1 or 2. I would tell you, read your 4, so that as a team, you're solid on your 4. You are bringing back to your peers what's most important. What do you want your team, what do you think is most important for them to know about those traits? And if you can give an example or 2 about here's how we do, here are things that we do that represent that trait, okay? It does not mean, if you would say, well, we don't really do it well, but we do it, okay, we're not looking at do we do it well or do we not do it well? What you're looking for is it something that we could use as an example? So if you are teaching me, I need you to tell me, well, what does it look like so I can really understand it? Make sense? If you come back and say, we can't think of an example of when we do this, okay, then you can also ask your peers, can you guys, now that we've told you what trait 2 really looks like and we've done a deep dive, what do you all think? Okay, it's fair to do that because you're going to want some of that conversation too. Make sense what you're going to do? Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set my timer for 30 minutes because I think you're going to need a good 30 minutes. Like I said, I'm a slow reader. I need time to read what I'm responsible for. Take time to read your traits. Yep, rip off your paper. I have plenty of painter's tape with me, so we'll take those up. Joe's got lots of, or somebody has lots of markers. Grab some markers. I'm not worried about your penmanship. I'm not worried about your spelling. Don't let that stop you, all right? And have at it, and I'll come in and check on you. How's that?
Okay. Hey, and reminder for those who might be watching the stream that we'll be breaking out into different groups. Not everything will be available for a while. I don't know, Joe, if it's possible for us to pause the stream temporarily till we come back.
I don't know if I can pause or not.
Good question.
No, they matter.
I cannot pause. It looks like it's end only, so we'll just let her run.
Yeah.
There's some things.
They all, I thought somebody would say and said, they all left. I didn't actually look for also, that would be helpful. Yes. But yes, you should check out the video, right? I'm gonna go see them there. Also like talking, I'm not going to do it right now, but I should be paying attention.
You're good.
It's Tammy.
Robert Mass.
Hey, Robert, and you have class one across the.
Yep, just middle school math.
Just middle school.
Yeah, something like that.
So when I said I don't math well, you were probably.
I was giggling at you.
10 of it up like, oh.
Actually, that's what I've been reading math documents. That's what I'm doing right now.
God bless you. We all have a gift. Math is not.
I enjoy it.
Math is not my, math is not my gift. Our daughter, who's probably the after does not fall far from the tree, would say she's not good at math either. And she and her boyfriend have a Italian restaurant. And I listened to her, and they're totally old school, so they're handwritten tickets, they're add stuff up at the end of the night. She looks at those tickets and she's like, we are $3.36 each one, and I'm like, or I'll watch while she's working and somebody comes and she looks like it's $28 a year. I'm like, and yet she is like,
She maybe didn't like certain parts of that.
and now that it's practical, right, there's a reason to, yeah, so it's okay, good for you, kid, because.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, that is, it's not my forte, but I'm very, I'm grateful to have a teacher career, and oh my God.
It's a different beast. Oh, yeah. They
There's
get a
also,
little crazy.
there's also gold stars in heaven for you, so
Uh.
that is all I had to say about that.
I have a chocolate malt waiting for me at home when we play cards, so I'm good. The kids know to deal out the cards. I told them I'd be home by 7:30. We play 10-point pitch. They're learning how to play.
For Master Key.
Of course, she just gave my keys away, so you're not going.
No, not until she returns. Sorry.
I just sent you and Tracy about the math standards you told me about. Oh, I'm so excited. I love the major works.
It's good,
And so now it's all like in there.
good.
And so I just wrote you both, but I've been like extensively trained through major works.
Perfect.
If anyone needs it,
Okay.
it's exciting.
I don't know a lot about them yet, so,
Okay.
but that's good.
Yep. You sat too side, or still here. Usually. There it goes.
You think I'm out of line to
We're turning lights off. It's getting serious.
They're flashing on us.
Oh, I thought you were turning them off on purpose.
Oh, no, they're motion activated, so once they go so long and nobody moves, they turn off.
That would be, I can sit quietly when I'm in the zone, focus at my desk for a really long time. That would be so, just in the dark.
Yep.
You know what, that might be a good reminder though, it's time to go home. Sarah, if you're just hanging out in the dark.
Maybe we should do that once in a while.
I know, right? You're like, stop it.
Okay, I had a glass of ice water that I brought in, there it is. I left it in my truck for too long, so I'm growing penicillin, so I'm hoping to get most of the stuff washed out. Okay.
They're not, are they in pads yet?
5th grade.
Oh, 5th grade.
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
Well, they did, the city wasn't gonna do, they'd stopped doing flag football. And then, are the people in charge were done with it, you know, so then we signed them up for this tackle football, and then a week later, flag football came out. So I'm like, darn.
Oh,
I was gonna tackle people.
Yeah. There's some big kids out there.
Chad, I don't care that Chase was a senior and up, and anytime that kid got tackled, Chad would be like, oh,
Yeah.
on the sidelines.
I get it.
I swear he didn't breathe till he got back up. He was just,
And we took some good kids, too.
he did. He's a big kid.
Tough kid. I said, I gotta leave by 7:30.
I do too. No, I did at 8:30. Or no, 7:30. 7:30, yeah. Do we start at 5:30? We did?
Started at 5.
Yeah, actually it was 7:32. It's a birthday party. I'm supposed to be an hour ago, but it'll be fine.
How'd you guys go Saturday?
You know, I was talking to Wessels, and we kind of had the same golf experience. So the first 9 holes, we were, I think, 4 above par. And then, oh, did you see I had the longest putt for a little bit, and then somebody must have stolen it from me. And it was the only putt I made in all day, but my long game was good. So we were 4 above par, and honestly, Chad and Amanda don't golf a lot, but her husband's a great golfer. And then the last 9 holes, I cannot remember.
Yeah, I got hot out.
So, it was good.
It was a fun time. It's always a fun time.
Yeah.
And it's a good way to. Right.
I know, it's,
See some old faces.
It'd be very artistic.
there's always so many wonderful people there.
Yeah.
I like seeing. Yeah.
Coming back here?
What's that?
Anyways, coming back here?
Oh, we got more people. Honestly, well,
It's been a few years.
Been a few years.
So I had, she's gonna have to present because I can't read that.
So you look around time constraints, so. Yeah, I just remember when you put it on.
Well, you know, I wasn't writing in there.
You wouldn't want to see it.
Just tell me when you're ready.
I'm like, oh, yeah, it's cold.
Yeah, it's cold.
What you shut off?
Sorry, I gotta write down what you just said all that.
I know, 'cause it sounds amazing.
I did nothing, I'm playing a game, that's all.
It's sweet that you say that, because wait till you see it, it's like my tools.
Never did that.
That's helpful, though. I like it when I don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Today, I'm
Yeah.
not working anymore.
You gotta reach this point where you just gotta chill out for a little. Yep. I get it.
There we go, friends, the Dr. is back. Okay. Did you, okay, Sarah, your team's got yours all on one. Let's start with, what's gonna be easiest? Can we take them up over there?
Oh, do I need to like rip them into
No,
four?
you're okay, because what I'm gonna have
No, it's fine.
you do is, you wanna tear it for me? I'm late, now I'm not even tearing my own tape, for gosh sake. All right. I'm like, Tony, we have to be able to read that. Oh, that's your one. Whatever it was, it couldn't have been that bad.
It was the bleed through.
All right,
Sure.
Sarah, your team had one, correct?
Yes.
All right. Oh, and my Siri now thinks I'm talking. Nope, not talking to you. All right, friends, I don't know how you're gonna wanna do this, but I highly recommend that you have something close at hand that you can take some notes with. And this is where I'm really going to encourage you, ask each other questions, because really understanding these and not just understanding them, but collectively feeling like, oh yeah, we're all on the same page. We all are thinking the same way on this will be really helpful because it will impact your results. So if you all interpret something a totally different way, you will also rank or rate in a very different way, and that will be harder when you get that data back. And those kinds of conversations, by the way, come out in the data as well. Oh no, I interpreted it as this, but flushing that out now is helpful. So, Sarah, do you want us to come over there so we can see what you wrote?
No, I'll
Oh, you are way too nice. I would have said yes.
So the first one is, yes, effective school boards commit to a vision of high expectations with student achievement and quality instruction. And then in the other things, it talks about 5-year strategic plan with action steps, with targets and benchmarks, which is what we're building. And then being able to link those to build it on how does it affect the building, how does it affect the teachers, what's the impact on students, not just saying, oh, we did this, but how do we expect that to filter down and impact individuals? So our examples are in green, we're building our 5-year strategic plan, and one of the items, I think it's easier to tailor it all the way down when we have one item was that had come up with the social studies curriculum, and the staff had picked it, so we feel like that's teacher driven, and they came saying they had good reports from local people who've used it, so we expect to have good reports or good use for our children here. And one of the other things in strategic one was quarterly staff reports with the board. And I liked that idea, and I don't know if that's something we want to adopt while we're doing our strategic plan, would be having a report, having the staff come to us and explain how things are working, what's working well, what barriers are they having, especially in that first year of our strategic plan, so we can adjust course if needed, or we can help them deflect barriers so they're most successful. And I just saw that some schools did it. I thought that was a great idea. It'd be nice to have a way to meet with some of the staff and find out how it's going on each level.
Okay. And when I come back on September 12th, thank you, not the 11th, or I'm all over myself on the 11th, is what it sounds like. You'll have an opportunity you will be identifying what are the standards you want to focus on going forward, and then you'll get the chance to apply what could that look like, okay? So that is a beautiful thought, but we're also going to put a pin in that, so okay, let's not lose that, but we don't necessarily have to create that piece today. Right. What questions do you have for standard 1?
I can keep going about that.
She's on a roll.
As we're coming into our first version of the 5-year strategic plan, and we've given some initial guidance to the administration, and they're gonna come back with the first draft plan. What kind of questions should we be taking out of this to help work together to get that ultimately to, I won't say final, because it will always be an evolving and improving version, but an effective one that you can launch with? What kind of questions would you advise the board to go into that first draft of a strategic plan that we've had months of building towards, the SWOT we've built towards, we've done a lot of work sessions on our vision. You came in and helped us get to 3 main goal areas. We then came back and took those main 3 goal areas in our SWOT and put a lot more meat on the bone of our vision. But at this point, have to really hand it over to the administration for some operational feedback and get that back. So when it comes back to us with that feedback, what kind of questions would you recommend the board be asking and looking for?
So a couple of things. I would say not only should staff give you feedback, but they really should give you that direction. So, right, financial success for all, right, physical, social. So I don't know what finance was my least favorite thing. I don't know what we need to focus on as a district for financial, but I would say, Joe, can you figure out what that is and come back and tell me? And give you time to talk about that.
That's kind of what we did for the last session, okay? So, and we don't have that up on the board here, and I don't mean to.
No.
Do it tonight.
But it helps me if I have an example, right? So then my next question, when Joe says, okay, we should do blah, 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 whatever it is. So then I would say, help us understand what is our role? What is our role as a board on that, right? Because it's not taking gate money at the football game. I mean, somebody needs to do that, right? But that's not it. But it is saying, how will we measure when we've been successful? What will it look like? So I'm just, for the sake of knowing that we are live streaming, I'm just giving examples because I have no idea what's happening in your district. So I'm not suggesting any of this, right? If you said we were going to have a bond referendum, then to me, board, one clear measure of that is, does it pass or not, right? That's a really good place for the board to say, here's a measure, which is then what your role in that becomes. If you have a goal to have a solvency ratio of
20%.
X, 20%, beautiful, then part of, right, what we should be asking is how will we know? And Joe's gonna say, or whomever your business manager is, your SPO is gonna say, I'm gonna deliver that to you monthly, I'll tell you what it is. Or I'll give it to you quarterly, or I'm gonna give it to you quarterly and I'm gonna forecast it out a year. Yeah. And together then you're gonna say, is that helpful? That would be the piece of, so help us understand.
How we measure it, what does success look like?
Yes.
What's our target? Let's put those numbers and metrics together. It will be kind of that next level.
Yep, and how do we talk about it at the table, right? So if all of a sudden solvency ratio 1 month is 19% and it's not 20, that you all look at each other and say, I don't know, are we concerned? And then I would look at Joe or whoever your SP goes, I don't know, are we concerned? And they'll say, again, I'm completely making this up. I'm not concerned because it's August and property tax doesn't hit until September and it won't be until the very end of September. And so things are traditionally, they're tight in August for most districts because of that. Oh, okay, great. I feel better about that, right? So next month, and again, if you're seeing it monthly, next month it'll look different. Okay. That's the piece where, and there may be some things that are really obvious that you're always looking at, but for me, like in finance, that wouldn't be obvious for me. Help me understand what could that look like, and collectively that you're agreeing on what are those couple of things that the board is going to have the discussion about. Those also become the pieces then when you're doing that evaluation to say, here's what, here were the measures we agreed on. And, oh, by the way, solvency ratio dropped to 12% because we just went through COVID. We just went through a pandemic and I don't know how that would be impacted. But that you're also talking about, do we need to make adjustments? That help?
Mm-hmm.
It's a great question. Okay.
We had number 2. So.
All right. Everybody good on number 1? Everybody feel rock solid on number 1? By the way, keep your big packet. I would tell you keep both your packets because your cheat sheet, the 1-pager, and the full 13 or 17 pages, I think will be really helpful to have in your hot little hands when you're going through your survey online stuff. Okay, Tony, sorry, I'll stop talking.
No, you're great. So number 2, effective student boards have strong shared beliefs and values about what is possible for students and their ability to learn, and of the system and its ability to teach all children at a high level. One of the examples that we have right now, what we're working on in that area, we're aware of the IEPs that we do with students who have some educational performance improvement needs, and we do individual education plans. Outside of that, the board sees some academic annual scores, graduation rate, things like that. challenging ourselves, do we see those other initiatives and data at the board level? We don't necessarily do that. Chris, they couldn't come up with other ones that we're aware of, that are regularly brought to us, or that we should be helping to drive, and that we can be better in seeing things as challenges instead of excuses. We have in different places looked at things from parental involvement and behaviors, poverty, the world today, things like that, that at different times, we have to look at those as obstacles to overcome, not a barrier to perceive. And then mindset, one of the key takeaways out of there was this positive mindset. And one of the things that they noted, the ratio was 67-4. High performing districts through the interview process, 4 negative comments, low performing districts, 67. They have this internal mindset of we can't, of what all the problems are, et cetera. They're not focusing on end goal, working backwards. How do we have to go to get there? What is the impediment between here and there? How do we approach that?
What do you think, friends? Does it make sense? Have you ever found yourself either saying out loud or thinking, well, we just, if only all the parents would be involved,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Lots of times.
Yeah, and lovely thought, right? The family unit looks different for every one of our students, right? So, and for different reasons. So the parent, right, who's not maybe at the XYZ event is working really hard just so that they can buy, I don't know, an asthma inhaler, right? Albuterol's not getting any cheaper these days. Or they're not there in the back, they're making tough choices. But Tony, I love what you said, that we are not going to let that be a barrier, that we're not going to say, well, we just know there's a certain percentage that we're never going to get because of XYZ. And I would encourage you to keep thinking about what's holding back to getting in any of these, right? What's holding back to getting to that percentage that you want? I don't know, but I'd be looking over here going, what do you see? What do you think? And what do you need? You can't solve everything. Totally get that. But yeah, what does that look like? Love that. Love that you picked up the 67 and the 4. And just because you're always thinking positively does not mean you are not acknowledging that there's an issue, but it is in how you say it, right? And if when you're having conversations at the board table, you are afraid or concerned about what you're going to say because of how it sounds, I've done that. I'm not going to say that, not because I'm afraid of what peers are going to think. I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to ask the question. Say that and then ask the question. I don't know how to ask this, so I'm just going to say it, and I'm going to look to my team to help me out. And they will. They'll say, oh, Dustin's going to say to me, Tammy, I think what you really meant to say was, and he'll help me rephrase it. Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask. Don't be afraid to do that. Okay? Really solid on number 2?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, number 3. We're going to just do a little ping pong, huh?
Accountability driven, an established vision backed by policy that targets student achievement, also in our 5-year plan, holding accountable all. And I put the staff, the board, admin to meet our targets and our goals. And we had even examples, so the SMART goals that we have coming up, that's the right way that we're holding people accountable, doing what we're supposed to be doing, everybody's collaborating. And they had a statement that said everything we do, they had a mission in the board, everything they did was what was best for children. So no matter if it was in policy and administration, they came down to, is this the best decision for children? It was such an easy way to kind of get to what is the best decision.
Promise I'm not updating my Facebook status, but I took a picture of Sarah's and then I can make it nice and big and I can follow along while you're.
Sorry.
No. I was being lazy and not walking over. I love holding account, what questions do you have for Sarah? Or team, Sarah and team, I should say.
I think sometimes as a board, we hold each other accountable too. I mean, and it goes lots of different ways.
Oh, I agree with that. And that comes back to that setting the tone for the district. we don't hold each other accountable, that's not gonna filter down the way we want. One thing, and we do have this, and I believe it's maybe from Palmer, that it came from their meeting, but are we making this decision in the best interest of the children? One variant that we've talked about a couple times on that, are we making this decision in the best interest of the children in our long-term vision? If we don't have that long-term vision and you make those questions in isolated buckets, what's best here may not be best overall. And if we don't see the overall, we'll make bad choices because we don't have the high-level vision.
Or what's best for all children, including the ones that will be here after you all are long gone.
Exactly. So are we considering the long-term impacts of those decisions?
And we don't know if there's gonna be a pandemic or a derecho or a flood or all the stuff that we also don't, heaven forbid, if only we could forecast, that would be helpful, but, right? Yeah, we don't know what that's gonna look like. I think that's great. And Tony, maybe the question is, I'm gonna go the opposite direction of what you said about the positivity is, what aren't we thinking about? Right? Yes, we're thinking about all children, but what are we forgetting? Or maybe you ask each other, what are we missing? And you let that sit, even in that awkward silence for a little bit, to just give yourselves a minute to think about, you don't know what you don't know, right?
One great phrase that we use a lot in different places, but there's no free moves. And what are the unintended consequences?
Yes, unintended consequences is a great one.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Feeling solid about number 2?
We have 4 as well.
Yeah,
No, we're at 4.
I'm sorry, number 3.
It's okay, we'll keep you on track.
Jeez Louise, I have more pages to turn. All right, so now we're on to number 4.
Collaborative relationship with staff committees to make strong communication. And they had 2 kind of phrases in there. They said, on the highly effective boards, the staff felt respected and heard. And they felt good, and when they interviewed the board said they were quick to communicate their actions and goals. I thought that was good. And these are some of the things that we have been doing to help build those. So the coaching committee, PADA, televisor recording our board meetings to have that transparency, PR committee, facilities committee, negotiations committee, joint board meetings with Lorenz. I feel like we have a lot of examples that this year, even where we've been trying to build those collaborative relationships and stronger relationships as a focus of the board.
What do y'all think? How often are you meeting with Lorenz? That's awesome.
Do we decide twice a year?
Once a year.
Awesome.
I think
We've met.
once. Yeah.
Are you all solid in the purpose of your committees and the responsibility of your committees? And does it follow your board policy? I know I'm not supposed to ask you more than one question at a time.
I think they do, because a lot of times at board meetings, we'll talk about something and then another board member will say, hey, that's following under this committee, we've been working on that, let us finish up where we are, and then we'll come back and report. And we report at our board meetings, every committee where they're kind of at in what their processes are. So we try not to step on each other's toes too much. If I'm not in a facilities committee and I'm like, oh, what about this? They're like, hey, we're doing that in those facilities, let us keep doing our work. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool, I just wanted to ask the question.
Yeah, which is also a great example of holding each other accountable.
And the flip side of that, that came out in Chris and I's discussion, one of the things that we can get better at, and we do have committee folders where every board member can access the notes from every committee's meetings. But one of the things that Chris and I learned was that the negotiations committee was more familiar with some of the things going on in PD because of conversations that came up during negotiations. So when we got into the professional development bucket that we're going to talk about next, he and I had a different starting understanding because I was on the negotiations committee and he wasn't. And so making sure that when we give the updates at the meetings and also directing folks to where those notes are kept, because committees serve a purpose so that we can divide that workload, but we also want to share the knowledge.
Yeah, negotiations came early in our board and we were not near as effective at sharing information. And Joe, kudos to you for that. Like when somebody asks a question, he'll send it to everybody so that we all have the same information and knowledge. I think that has gotten a lot better than when we started.
Yep. So I know I said we're not doing fixes tonight. One of the things that I just heard out of that conversation around PD, I won't take the wind out of anybody's sails, is collectively as a board, you might want to say, we just want to learn about PD together. Right? And you might say, and so then and by the way, you've got to we'll have to pick and choose. How much time do you want to spend together? What does that look like? But you might say to Joe, can somebody just give us a half-an-hour presentation on how do we pick our PD, or we're not suggesting we want to pick it for you. We just want to learn, so that everybody walks away with Tony's level of knowledge from something else, that because it's hard for you to all ask the really deep, meaningful questions if you don't understand it, right? And there's nothing wrong with you bringing different levels to the table, but you may decide, hey, professional development, that's something we want to talk about quarterly. What does that look like? How do we know it's successful? It's probably a hefty little spend in your budget, I would guess, even if you only figure the fact that you're paying your staff to attend, because it's really, really important, and legally you should. But that's so food for thought on that, okay?
We have 5.
Don't forget, by the way, on your communication, thinking about making sure that you are getting information from a variety of sources as well. It will most likely help your learning. All right. And look at Tony's prepared. He's like, I'm taking 5 and 6.
And so,
And 7.
After I said you weren't getting them sequentially, and then he's even got Dustin in doing the heavy lifting. Dustin, I also heard you say you're doing taxi duty for a kiddo tonight.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be the person that makes you late for that. So when you need to do that, or anybody else for that matter, if you
Nope, thank you.
will, because once we're done with this, I'll give you what we're gonna do for your next steps.
Okay. So 5 was PD. As we mentioned a moment ago, the negotiations committee had more exposure than the rest of the board, so it might be an opportunity to improve some of our comms on that. One of the things that we noted was, we definitely feel like both teachers and the admin want it and value it, but we don't always agree on the course of the topic. We currently in Pokey have a wrong public impression. We hear from parents that that's a day off. Maybe we can do some things to better understand where we're improving by how we utilize PD.
And if you were gonna say that in a positive manner, how would you rephrase that sentence?
That the public impression is that we have a day off for that. I would.
No, what did you say right before that? About the public?
That we have a wrong public impression that when we have a PD day, it's a day off.
So there might be confusion in the
There's
public
confusion
perception.
about what a PD day, yes. Okay, perfect, appreciate that. We went through, there were kind of 5 things that they identified, and we just sort of rated ourselves on plus or minus on how we stand on those. Maintain high standards for PD despite budget challenges, felt like we're doing pretty well on that as a district. We did keep a focus on that, definitely the administration carries a high value on that, as the teachers do as well. Linking those activities to our improvement plans. This is probably something the administration has a much better view of than the board does, but it's a minus for the board. We don't have any knowledge of how that links to our improvement plans and what we're doing with PD today. Clear understanding of the characteristics and quality of PD. It's just an area that we can improve. There was a lot that came up again during negotiations about how we use that, but maybe the full board doesn't have that knowledge. Clear belief on the importance of improving knowledge of our educators and coaches. Again, it's just an area that we can do better as a board, sharing our expressed beliefs on that. And then I thought it was a strength and meaningful commitment of funding PD, that of the 5 areas they identified there, we put ourselves fairly strong into, and then we improved the other 3.
I have a totally different interpretation of that. So number 5, effective boards are data savvy. They embrace and monitor data even when the information is negative.
and use it to drive continuous improvement.
He's
I
doing,
did 6 then.
Oh,
Did I go
yeah.
out of order?
yeah, he
okay.
did, but for
Yeah.
Oh,
whatever
that makes
reason.
so much more sense.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did six.
Yeah.
Cause I was trying to do
Yes,
that
I
same
did.
thing
Yes,
Sarah
I
is
did.
here.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did we?
Tony, for what it's worth, I was with you, and I don't know how I did that, but.
I just covered 6.
Yeah,
So-
six, yeah.
Can we focus on 6 for a minute?
I'm gonna ask you a question that number
Yeah.
6. Tell me what the very first bullet is, because I'm not close enough to read it.
Negotiations committee has more exposure than the rest of the board.
Okay, was there one that said that we don't necessarily agree on that we're doing the right
Teachers
topics?
and admin both want it, but don't always agree on the course of topic.
Oh, okay, so between teachers and admin?
Yeah.
Okay, so there might be an opportunity to shore that up, or one just might not necessarily like it. One might not like from what the other picks, okay. Okay. That is so funny. I'm holding this, I'm looking right at it, and then when you said that, Sarah, I'm like, really? I'm like, oh, yeah, okay.
I'm-
You're just checking to see if everybody's
into that.
paying attention.
I was looking all over in
Yeah, it's
five
like
trying to
it's
see, where is PD mentioned in this?
So I'm
section?
so
I was
sorry,
following
Dustin.
through the PD.
Thank you.
Didn't pay attention, it was on six.
Dustin, you'll get
Thanks,
an email.
Dustin.
Tomorrow morning, there'll be directions.
One of the things
Thanks,
I look
Dust.
forward to is,
Okay.
after we get our strategic plan built for next year, it would be interesting to see how we can align PD to board goals and district goals. That would be a check in the box for me, that would be, that's all I have.
Okay, so now I'll do 5.
Thank you.
Okay.
Data, do we get enough data? And that's kind of the first 20,000 foot question that Chris asked, and I tend to agree with, that we're seeing a lot of the annual data, but not necessarily a frequency or specific. So effective boards, ID, specific student data needs through data, justified decisions through data. Effectively, we've handed that off to the admin. We don't drive a lot at the board level is what our conversation was about, and feel like we passed most of that to principals, and aren't as aware of that as maybe we should.
Or there's data that we don't know till we ask for sometimes, like detentions, how many kids are in suspension, or we don't always see all of that fall to spring. I know we did once, but I don't know that that's something that routinely comes before the board.
No, I mean, literally, it may be a conversation that will have to happen as to what kinds of data are you interested in? Because we have enough data to drown people, right? I mean, but if you narrow down what it is we're looking for, a lot of what you then mention, we can go back and bring you something right back. It's collected, but it should,
We don't ask.
you're, without it having a purpose for you,
Yeah.
it's not gonna have a lot of meaning probably for you either.
In strategic planning, I was thinking about, when we're doing that, and then we're talking about behaviors, and we talked about this detention that we're implementing, and then those suspensions, detentions, those might be good numbers to track in that, right? If that's gonna be part of our strategic planning.
And this is where the balanced scorecard that will ultimately come out of strategic planning and then reviewing with administration, what are the metrics, how are we measuring, where's the goal? That's where we'll work with you and the team, and what is the data that's out there, what points towards this, how.
And to ask a complicated question, when I was thinking about this data, and I'm like, oh, we have seen, how many kids have been in some kind of consequence, right? And then I thought, do I wanna see those numbers go down, or do I wanna see them go up? Do I want, because I'm not sure. Do we want to capture them? Because the way that we've set up detention should be helping those kids meet their goals, right, for school homework and things that they're behind in. So maybe initially up's not a bad direction, because we're capturing them, refocusing them, and then we should see a trend down.
I think the number you want to look at is whether detention is going to reduce the number of suspensions.
There you go.
That's right.
It's a more effective, easier
Yeah.
goal to reduce that.
Are we catching them early to prevent bigger problems?
High-performing boards believe in sharing information between the board, superintendent, and the public. We've been working very hard on that front. Not afraid of negative data or how emotional, or having emotional reactions to that data. This was one of the key takeaways they had in there. As we start seeing more data, number one, we should be afraid to talk about data. We'll talk about where we're at, where we're trending, what we want to do, what we want to do collectively. And one of the biggest pieces of that is not to have an emotional or defensive reaction to it, but to focus on the issue and take the steps needed. The other key takeaway in that is that by utilizing data and sharing and publishing what data we're using, in the end, we will end up building trust at all levels across the school and community. And one of the big examples that was cited in the study was districts that weren't doing that, and then they struggled to go get the tax levy or get the funding they needed for this, that, or the other thing, versus districts that were very clear about what they're doing, what they're measuring, where they're at, had much better levels of success in going and getting that public funding vote. That's what we had for, I guess that was 5.
What questions do you have about data?
I like data.
One of the things that I am also going to have you think about is this fun little acronym DRIP. Data, rich, information, poor. So back to Joe saying, I can give you all kinds of data, right? But I think, so Sarah, when you say, I like data and I want to see it, what I would encourage you to say is, don't ask for the thing, ask for what you want to see, right?
Data rich what? Poor?
Information poor. So if I give you a whole bunch of data, but you don't really get time to talk about it, you're not tying it back, it doesn't make sense. So, and I'm just gonna use the example you said about the detention suspension piece. Instead, and I love, do we want to see it go up or do we want to see it go down? Like, beautiful question. So that's where that, how will we know when this is successful comes in, right?
Yeah.
And then let your staff figure out, is that the piece of data we bring in or do we bring something else? So that you're not drowning, as Tony said, in data, and that you get time to digest it and talk about it and say, I don't know, should it go up or should it go down? What a great question, and talk about that. And then let your administration help guide you too on, so, because they'll probably go, well, ideally, I think we want to go down and here's why, but then you can have that conversation. So, beautiful. Great way to switch those around, Tony, and see if everybody was paying attention. Would you like to do number 7 now, though?
Yes, we would.
Okay.
So effective school boards lead as a united team with the superintendent, each in their respective roles with strong collaboration and mutual trust. Main takeaways we took from that is the board needs to maintain strong collaboration and mutual trust with the superintendent. It's an area that we can continue to improve on. The next main need they identified there are conditions allowed for the superintendent to function as the CEO. Thought we're pretty good on that, but probably a better question to make sure with him that he's aligned and feeling we're pretty good on that. We struggled as a board with the evaluation process this year. You've helped us with part of that towards the end. Is this an area that we can improve on as well? And one of the main areas and probably main reasons that we have some of these other opportunities for improvement is we're building the vision still. So it's so hard for us to have common vision and be united concurrently moving forward on that vision when we haven't properly defined it and laid it out to the superintendent and defined it in a way that we're all working on the same page. And that's the work we've been putting in and building out over the course of the year.
I believe they say that's building an airplane while you're flying it.
Feels like it sometimes.
All right. Are you good on number 7?
Yes.
Now that he's really shooken you up and he's taking them in order now. All right. Number 8, bring us home.
So board and senior admin training together to build shared knowledge, values, and commitments. And I feel like we do a great job like we got recently. And then Joe, I can't think of a training we haven't done without Joe. So I was like, oh, people do that without their superintendent? That was.
We do not recommend that.
That's good, because we've never done it that way. So we do have the board tables, new board orientation we did, the financial class, the board self-assessment, and then I think some of us went to the IASB convention and some others will go this year, so we do this really well. That's probably the best thing we do is education, and I think that has changed our group a lot, and cohesion and common goals and sharing the same language and pathways and understanding and
We wouldn't be able to do the other things if we weren't all on the bus. Education has put us on the same bus, so.
And I want to highlight what Sarah was saying, and kudos to the administrative team. They have attended all of our stuff, board meetings, training sessions, work sessions. They've been very diligent when not required and put in that extra time all the time.
I'm gonna give you a couple of assignments, and one of them you can choose if you do that or not. But, so we're, late, we're also running late. So I'm going to suggest that you think about, as a board, do this at your next board meeting, the pages are all sticking together. I want you to take a look at page, if I can get there, page 5. Actually, it starts on page 4, sorry. This is an article that a dear colleague and friend of mine wrote, Harry Heiligenthal. Some of you may know Harry. He retired from IASB about the time that I was coming on. And he's just, he was involved in some of the original Lighthouse work. He has worked tirelessly with Spencer through the years. So this article highlights the Lighthouse work that Spencer has done. Literally highlighted in the article are several sections, and they're numbered. What I would encourage you to think about doing as a team, and this would be really, do you have when's your next board meeting?
On Monday.
Well, if you're not too short to get it on your agenda, or think about, could you add a little learning session at the end? Read this article. It is much easier and shorter than what I had you working on tonight. And can you talk about, in the areas that are highlighted, 1 through 6, where do you see in the examples of what Spencer's doing, which of the 8 traits where would you plug them in? And spoiler alert, there's probably more than one on all of them. But it would be a good practice for you to say, oh, this is what it looks like in another district. This is not to say another district is doing something better than you are. That is not the point of this. It is just to say, 1, it was an article that Harry wrote, and 2, to use it as an example to now say, okay, can we identify them in something else? Because quite frankly, sometimes it's easier to do that outside of your own work than it is when you're trying to identify in your own work. Okay, so that is totally optional, but it would be a really great way too to help bring your other 2 board members up to speed. Okay, all right. Takeaways. I would love for you to just share with me, so I can write them down. What's a key takeaway from tonight? Tell me an aha moment. Tell me something that you learned, something you found interesting. Just a nugget.
I had done some of the research from the June article that Luann had put out and read a couple of links from there. What I hadn't seen before tonight that was a new takeaway and also eye-opening in a way that we do reflect some of those danger signs in A through L. And I'd seen the positive side, the 8 things or 5 things, and the 5 things do cover the same as the 8, they just break out different things under the bullets. But I hadn't seen the negative side, and that was eye-opening.
And that's hard sometimes, by the way, when you're trying to be self-reflective and go, oh, bad stuff too. And you're gonna have a chance to do that on your survey. It's not focus, back to the 67 and 4. But it is important that that's fabulous. It's important that you talk about that. And be brave enough to say it out loud, so thank you. Thank you for leading your team in that.
The thing for me was just not making any excuses for why kids don't succeed, don't use poverty or family life or any of that stuff. Because I think we're all guilty of that.
Yeah.
To be honest, I mean,
Yep.
whether we say it or we think it, I think we're all guilty of it.
I just got goosebumps. It's beautiful. What else?
I read the Lighthouse study maybe 3 months into being a board member, and then, I think that stuff lives in the back of our minds more often than we think, because it's cool to see how our board has shifted, and I think we follow quite a bit of the effective board Lighthouse policies, and that's nice.
Definitely evolving in that direction.
Yeah.
And as we, so much of this that we can continue to refine and do better.
It's just nice to see it again and see the progression that are written out, yeah.
Jeff, I won't put you on the spot.
I just say, the more we meet together as a board, I think we work together better. That's the biggest thing I've seen is these meetings really help us to get to know each other better and to function better. When we first started, we were all over the place. Really. And now we're functioning
Felt that too.
better.
Yeah.
I haven't seen improvement.
We're more effective,
Awesome.
yeah.
That's awesome. If you take a look at this book, by the way, one of the pieces that I like, and I will just share with you, is there's a school district that's referenced, and it says, since 2001, the school district has been charting a new course for student achievement, garnering state and national attention along the way. So this is the work they were doing with Lighthouse. The district has been featured in Time Magazine and Good Morning America as a poster child for the positive effect of No Child Left Behind. Yep, because it was back then. Iowa's largest newspaper, the Des Moines Register, had this to say about the district's efforts in July of 2006. I shared that with this specific board who had no idea of the work they had done because all of the board members were gone. And a board member looked at me and said, they were featured in Time Magazine. And she looked at me and she was, yeah, but that was in 2001. And I said, you're right. Boards get featured, Iowa school boards get featured in Time Magazine all the time, right?
Are we past due?
So, I share that because it's a big deal. All right, here are your two last things. You're gonna write a letter to yourself. You know how this works. It's the very last page in your packet. You're gonna rip it off. You're gonna write a quick letter to yourself. What do you wanna do? What are you committing to remind yourself of in 30 days as part of your work tonight? And then I'm gonna give you the rundown of what you're gonna get tomorrow morning, because then your real work starts. Believe it or not. I didn't mean to stop what you're doing, sorry.
Nope.
I'm really being right. Remember, this is between you and you. You're gonna put your letter in the envelope, you're gonna address it to yourself, you're gonna seal it. I am not reading your letter. I now have board members saying, do you want money? Postage went up, and I'm like, no, I don't want money. This is my gift to you.
I know there's a screen. I thought we were going to get something.
But we can do that if you want us to, I didn't understand if we had us to it.
All right, here's the logistics of how this is gonna work, friends. Tomorrow morning, I won't promise it's right at 8, but it's gonna be first thing. You're going to get an email from an IASB member, Catherine Solon is her name. She is going to blind copy you, and she's gonna make a note. This is going to all board members, but then it's blind copied, so if anyone accidentally doesn't reply all, you are not in violation of open meeting law. Your board secretary and Joe will be copied on your emails so they know what you're getting and the cadence of when you're getting them, okay? So you'll get that first thing. It will include a link. It is to SurveyMonkey, where you will take your evaluation. I would recommend that you find 30 to 45 minutes quiet where you can really focus on just answering the questions. There are only 12 questions. And you may say, are you kidding me? I need 30 minutes for that. I don't know how long you want, but to really give time to, one, you are selecting radio buttons, rating yourselves, and there's a place to put comments. Very important to note, I will be bringing your data back to you. I will not be attributing your name to your comment in the data I bring back. but it still will be public record. So don't give specifics, don't use names, all right? I want you to be thoughtful about how you are responding on the information you're giving. You will have until noon on August 26th to have the data back to us. So you have 2 full weekends to take your, the self-assessment. Because we're not putting your name on your self-assessment, Catherine's gonna send you a couple reminder emails if she doesn't have, so by next Wednesday, if not everyone has done theirs, she's gonna say, hey Tammy, I only have 3 of 7 responses, and I'm gonna say, hey, let's just send a follow-up email. So if you get an email and you say, I already did mine, we don't know that, okay? So you may see that. If you have trouble or if you have specific questions, you can reach out to Catherine. Her contact information will be, you can call me, but I'm gonna give you to Catherine. Her contact information will be in there. All of your information comes back to us. None of it sits in the district, okay? So I'll be going through, actually Catherine's going to go through all of your data first. She will help me pull it together and it will bring what I bring back to you. Your conversation probably won't be quite as laborious as it was tonight, because you're digesting your own data versus reading such a big document. But again, you will be spending time, I will help guide you, but you're gonna have some conversation around that data. And I will also give you time to read and just sort of digest that data back as well, okay?
Will you repeat the due date again was?
August, I'm gonna make sure, since I already said one date wrong, Jeff, I gotta make sure that I say, August 26th is a Monday.
Right.
So you'll have this weekend, and you'll have the weekend of the 23rd, 24th. I usually measure it, and I like to give board members at least 2 weekends, because I know what it's like during the week. I will tell you, I've had some board members say, that doesn't take anywhere near 30 minutes, and I've also had some board members say, I couldn't do it in 45 minutes, I needed an hour. So everybody's a little bit different. But again, I would give yourself a good 30 minutes. I would hang on to both packets of information tonight, so that you have that cheat sheet. Catherine's gonna email that, I say cheat sheet, the short one pager, I shouldn't call it cheat sheet. The short one pager will be in the email that you're gonna get from Catherine tomorrow morning. Everything's gonna go to your district email. Okay, so we'll send everything there. But I would have both pieces of information, so if you wanna go back and look at something, that you're able to do that, okay? If you will give me 3 minutes and 31 seconds more, I have a video that we have, it's an old video. Actually, we have just recently reprised it. So it's one that I remember as a board member, and it talks about all the stuff that you just talked about tonight. 3 minutes and 31 seconds to sit still and watch something is a long time in today's society when everything is on demand and we're multitasking. I would ask that you take a deep breath and let the faces of these students and the words just sink in, because I think it's incredibly powerful. All the things we talked about tonight. And the question of, will you make it happen? You're well on your way. So, thank you. I so apologize for being late tonight. Thank you though for your time. And I will see you all in a month, give or take. And we don't have to worry about snow between now and then at least.
There you go.
Right?
Thank you very much, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. I better not leave without these.
That's
I'll
right.
get all the way home.